That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The British Constitution provides that taxation and representation shall go together. Therefore, women taxpayers are entitled to vote.
I have a dream today. Let freedom ring, and if America is to be a great nation, this must become true.
Hi, and welcome to episode 16 of the Only Human podcast. Today's is kind of interesting because it's a direct response to some feedback we got from someone who was listening to the earlier podcasts and wrote in, basically emailed me and said, "Hey, listen, Tony, why aren't you talking about any of the stuff you really know about?" So, great, what are you talking about here? And he said, yeah, I'm so used to hearing you talk about blue thread air control and professionalism and aviation safety. I'd like to really hear your thoughts on those topics. Of course, that reminded me, Andrew, who is here with me in the studio, of kind of like a classic rock band that comes out and wants to play new music. Everybody goes, "We don't want to hear that crap. Play the hits." So today we're going to play one of the hits, albeit with a few new riffs and chords woven in, but we will consistently respond to listener and watcher, reader feedback on this. And so we're going to talk today about professionalism. Again, I'm Tony Kern, and professionalism is one of my favorite topics. We're going to talk about why today. More importantly, I think we should start with what qualifies me to talk to you, or anybody for that matter, about your professionalism. Right? Great question. It's sort of my interest in this topic and this word grew out of discussions with a couple of my mentors. Proud to say both of them are previous chairmen of the NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board. It all started back in 2008 when then Chairman Deborah Hersman contacted me and asked me if I would speak at the NTSB forum on professionalism. Not really sure why she reached out, but I was really excited about it. And so I went to a forum there in Washington, D.C. and talked about my vision and thoughts on professionalism, and realized there right then that even with a couple hundred of the smartest people in the world in the room, we really didn't have a good grasp on what it meant. Right? Fast forward a little bit, and on another chair of the NTSB, Robert Sumalt, a friend for 20 years, was telling me a story about he was giving a critique to an airline captain after a particular simulator or flight, and the captain kind of took offense to some of the critique items that Robert was giving him. And he said, "Look, we're all professionals here," to Robert, to which Robert replied, "Yes, but your definition of professionalism and mine must somehow differ." So that two elements led me to dive a little bit deeper into research and writing. And the result of all that was a book that I published, I want to say around 2011, called Going Pro, The Deliberate Practice of Professionalism. And so we're going to talk today about a little bit that I've discovered over the years about that, some new things, an exciting new announcement about that book, and all the subsequent activities that have occurred, all with an idea that there are things that you can do where you are with the resources at hand to, in this case, become more professional. So a long intro for episode 16, but like always, let's start with the Blue Thread proverb of the week. Today, it is number 23, and it says simply, self-improvement defies gravity. Self-improvement defies gravity. Now, what that means, and it's something we all kind of realize, is that it's always hard to get started on an improvement effort, whether it's getting in better shape, maybe losing a few pounds, deciding to learn more about a given topic, get an advanced certification or degree. There's always that really hard part when you have to change your habits and behaviors to get started. But once you begin it and once you realize how good it feels to be getting better at something, anything, it takes on a life of its own. It provides its own energy, its own lift, if you will. So that's what Blue Thread Proverb 23 is all about. And it directly applies to this issue of the day, professionalism. So let me tell you that it seems like it wouldn't be true, but professionalism is a really hard thing to talk about. And you want to know why? It's because everybody really thinks you're talking about unprofessionalism. So I'll let that sink in for a second, and then I'll prove it to you. Imagine how you would feel if your boss called you into her office one day and said, "Listen, Tony, we have to have a discussion about professionalism." What would you think? What would you think was about to happen, right? Maybe she pulls out a poster that says there is no you in team, right? And you're about to get fired, right? Or my second meme I love about worrying about getting fired. Somebody says, "Don't worry about losing your job. Your job will still be there. Somebody else will just be doing it." So you're worried because somebody talks about professionalism. You instantly think, "What did I do wrong?" Right? But my point is that professionalism can't be allowed to be recognized, at least for now, by its absence. Right? If we're going to talk about professionalism, let's dispose with talking about unprofessionalism for a while. And that's what we're going to do for the next few minutes here together. Because it seems like the only time we really hear anything about the topic is when it reaches a level of performance where no one can ignore it any longer. And so what does that lead us to do? It leads us to believe that, well, we're assumed to be professionals. And if there's an unprofessional act, there should be some standard of what professionalism actually looks like, right? So in my humble opinion, the first challenge is we must question that assumption, right? But typically, you would think that would be, "Hey, am I a professional?" That's not a good way to ask it. Good questions are better than good answers. And so a better way to ask that question is, am I behaving professionally? Note the present tense. Am I behaving professionally right now? Right? So the next question is, how would we know? Right? How would we know? There really aren't any tightly defined standards to measure our behavior against this weird term that we allow to be defined by its negative. Are there? Maybe. Maybe there are a few. But we need to go back a few years to understand it. Actually, about 623 years to be exact. And we'll time travel there in just a minute, right after a quick word from our sponsor.
So, you need some IA refresher credit, huh? We've all been there. Which one are you doing this time? The one with the 4-hour video hosted by a boring nerd? Or the one with a 50-page workbook printed on cheap paper? Wait a minute. What's this? The Aviation Maintenance Never Events is a brand new approach to preventing the 7 most common and most costly accidents that happen on the hangar floor. Watch videos that demonstrate the topic, learn while staying engaged with multiple interactive sections in each lesson, and dive into case studies that explore the depth and breadth of each of the 7 never events. So visit our website or give us a call to discover the power of a program that people are calling as big a leap forward in maintainer safety and training as simulators were for pilots.
Join us on our website at drtonykern and click the link for eLearn to sign up for this exciting program today.
Okay, welcome back. The word professional comes to us, like most of the words in our language, or at least many, from the Latin, through medieval French and then into old Middle English. And let's start with the root word profess, which comes from the Latin word profetior, and it means, translated, to acknowledge, confirm, promise, confess. So the original term used to refer to those who were seeking to become part of a profession, right? The first recorded occurrence of the word professional in the English language was out of the 1420 Oxford Dictionary. And it did indeed refer to pertaining to making entrance into a religious order. Right? So if you trace the term through the next few decades and then through the next couple of hundred years, what we see is that it applies not only to religious orders, but it also applies to trade guilds. And so religious orders kind of use funny words. Trade guilds use ones that we'll understand a little bit better. So that's where I'm going to take you, right? So tracing the use of the term through the next few hundred years seems to indicate that professional meant you took some sort of solemn oath, right? What words we might use now are vow or promise in the modern language. So what did that look like inside the trade guilds? The trade guilds were highly organized groups of skilled craftsmen, right? And they followed very high standards that were guarded almost as trade secrets. But they all tended to go through the same order. At around age 14, you could attempt to you could apply to join a trade guild by being an apprentice, right? There was actually no pay for apprentices. Your pay was, someday we may offer you an invitation to become a novice, to join the novitiate, right? So apprentices typically, I always like to use the guild of glass blowers because it was highly dangerous, right? Have to have kilns and fire and coal and all of that. So an apprentice might shovel coal and clean out the kilns and the furnaces for a year or two. Now, what good would that do as far as learning? Well, you're around the people that know what they're doing. You're getting to understand what's happening around you. After a couple of years, you go from apprentice and maybe you get an invitation to be a novice. Now, a novice, age 16, 17, again, 18 months to 2 years where you're learning the skills, right? But you are never allowed to work on your own. A novice always works under the guise of a master craftsman. Okay? That's to prevent any normalized deviance from creeping in and eroding the standards in this profession. Okay? The next level up is journeyman. Interesting word. A journeyman can actually make money, right? But a journeyman, the root word there is the French word jour, which means day. A journeyman can only work within a day's ride of a master craftsman. And a master craftsman must inspect a journeyman's work. So they trust you enough to go out and make money, but not enough to work unsupervised. That comes at the next level, craftsman. So when you graduate from journeyman to craftsman, now you're in the profession for 8 to 10 years. Now they trust you to work alone. Right? What you don't have at the level of craftsman is the ability to have apprentices and novices or supervised journeymen. You're a one-man show. You can make money, but it's only on you. If you want to make more money, you've got to become a master craftsman, because now you can hire apprentices, supervise novices and train them. You can supervise journeymen and you can grow your business. So you see, there's not only a professional standard of advancement, but there's an economic driver behind it. Right? What a great program. That defines what true professionalism was in the golden days of professionalism. But through a whole bunch of reasons, some of them economic, some of them social, a couple hundred years ago, the trade guilds sort of fell, right? All the standards, let's go back to glass blowers, that were guaranteed by the trade guilds were no longer guaranteed. And basically anybody that wanted to blow glass and sell it could. It was kind of made mediocre craftsmen be able to go out and peddle their wares. So the same public that cried for destroying the elitism of the guilds suddenly started seeing the erosion of the standards of the products that those guilds produced. And not only that, some of the safety standards, think about high temperature kilns operating in and around cities and towns built of wood, straw, and sticks. Made mediocre craftsmen, right? So the same public that cried for destroying the elitism of the guilds suddenly started seeing the erosion of the standards of the products that those guilds produced. And not only that, some of the safety standards, think about high temperature kilns operating in and around cities and towns built of wood, straw, and sticks. and some of the disasters that happened, the same people came back now to the monarchs and said, hey, my glassware sucks and my cities are burning down. What are you going to do about it? And that was a critical moment in professionalism, because it gave rise to the government regulator, right? So we had the trade guilds, professionalism flourished. They were kind of squashed by all sorts of factors, social and economic. Then bad things happened. And then the kings and governments came in and queens and said, we need to regulate this, right? The rise of the regulator. So the regulator replaced a career spanning professionalism effort with minimum standards. And that's what we're living with today. Regulations, by their very definition, right, are minimum standards of performance. So where are we today? We've turned a powerful concept into an assumed competency with a negative connotation whenever it gets brought up. Professionalism, who did something wrong? That, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot let stand. So in this next section, I want to briefly review 5 levels of professionalism. Originally, there were 3 levels that came out of the book Going Pro research back in the earlier part of this century. And I want to give it some 21st century guidance along with it. All right. So 5 levels of professionalism. Let's start with the most basic level. This is someone who has a job inside a profession. A level 1 pro claims his or her professionalism. I'm a pro because I work for a legal team, an airline, a manufacturing facility. My organization is very professional. And because I work for it, I am therefore a pro. I'll give you that, right? That's something. To get a job in a profession requires you to have met the minimum standards and gotten hired and performed well enough to stay hired, right? You bring your lunch bucket to work and all is well. But there's got to be something above that, right? And there used to be, if you remember, apprentice, novice, craftsman, journeyman craftsman, master craftsman. So level 2 professionals not only have a job, but they are fully compliant with the standards of that job. They're not cutting any corners, right? They're not violating any rules. If they accidentally cross a standards line, they'll self-report, they'll fix it. Level 2s are rare out there. Non-compliance is rampant in our world. So not only does a level 1 have a job, but a level 2 is fully compliant with all of the standards of that job all of the time, unless they accidentally slip across. A level 2 professional will never willingly and knowingly violate a standard. Right? So I have a job, I'm following all the rules. There's got to be more than that, right? Again, thinking backwards to what it used to be. And there is. Level 3 professionals are where we really turn the corner back toward what professionalism once meant. Level 3s are not only employed and fully compliant, they're fully engaged in getting better every day. More importantly, getting better every day with the resources they have at hand from every experience and of their own volition. Nobody has to kick them in the butt and say, hey, we want you to get better. You just put them in place and they're going to learn better ways to do it and they're going to apply it. All the while being fully compliant and really earning their keep as a member of a profession. So level 3s are that fully engaged, getting better every day. You don't have to show me how. You just need to give me an opportunity and I'm going to learn from every experience. And that's where the levels in my book, Going Pro, Deliberate Practice of Professionalism, stop. Now, here's the big announcement. I've been working on a 2nd edition of Going Pro for a couple of years, and it will be out this year, probably in August. 2nd edition Going Pro will add 2 new levels of professionalism and a whole bunch more case studies and background. So I'm excited to tell you about that. And by telling you about it publicly, I have held my feet to the fire with you, made a commitment. So what are the 2 new levels? So we've talked about level 1, 2, and 3. Level 4 professionals are level 3s who have a job, they're fully compliant, they're getting better every day, that have decided to make others better as well. Right? These are the true role models. These are the mentors that we hear so much about. I like to refer to level 4 professionals as game changers because they change entire cultures. Right? They form groups of experts. They lift people into compliance and then into continuous improvement. Level 4s can change entire organizations. And if you can find a few and sprinkle them around in the right places, you can change a culture fast. Right? Wow, what could be better than that? Maybe nothing. But I'm going to add a level 5 anyway, because sometimes you get all of that, and that level 4 gets promoted into a really senior executive position. So level 4s can be anywhere in any part of the organization. They don't necessarily have to have high degrees of rank or authority. They can be anywhere. But a level 5 is a formal leader, right? Who's been promoted into a senior leadership position that still believes in full compliance, in getting better where he or she is, and helping other people get better. Right? So a level 5 is somebody who's positioned at the top with level 2, 3, and 4 skills, standards, and talents. All right, those are the 5 levels. So what level are you? Right? What level are you? Are you a level 1 with a job, but sometimes you cut a few corners? A level 2 that's fully compliant? A level 3 who's getting better every single day with the resources at hand? Nobody needs to convince you. A level 4, you're all of those things, but you're taking it to others and showing them how to as well? Or a level 5, a real senior person with all of those skills and talents? It's kind of a trick question, which I pride myself in. What level are you? I study this stuff. I do it all the time. We all jump up and down that ladder, right? A level 4 game changer is only one non-compliant act, one violation from regressing to level 1 behaviors. So the better question to ask is, what level of professionalism am I currently operating at? What do I need to change or improve to climb that ladder? Right? If I'm a level 4 or a level 5 and I take a non-compliant act, man, I need to realize that, and I need to climb back up that ladder by becoming fully compliant, fully engaged, getting better where I am, helping others. But we need to recognize that no one ever stays at a level. You are the level of professional that you are currently operating at. It's a present tense kind of question. What do I need to change to improve to become a higher level of professional? Am I willing to recognize that I just slipped and put in the effort to climb back up? And so here's where I want to switch from the personal to the organizational a little bit, and then we'll wrap this thing up. To be brutally honest, this is pretty simple. It wasn't that hard of a research project. But to be brutally honest, I've had a really hard time convincing industries and organizations that this is even important. Okay? Because the natural reaction from many inside an industry or large organizations especially to reports that unprofessional behaviors are happening on their watch. I could give you 50 examples from this week, right? They're all over the thing. This guy did this cop did this clergyman did that, this organization allowed this quality control escape. Here's how these organizations respond when you question their commitment to professionalism. First thing they do is they deny the problem. This was a one-off. We've seen it, we've fixed it, we've vocationally done this, we fired this person, whatever. The second thing, if you push a little harder to say, you know what, this is kind of a continuous issue and one you should really address, is they'll band together in a defensive posture. No, we got this. We've got culture professionals, we have safety professionals, we have quality professionals. We're supposed to be performing at a high level of professionalism. There's some evidence we're not, so we've got to kill that evidence, right? We've got to shoot the messenger. And that's step 3. They attack the messenger. And I've personally experienced that for years. Right? Time and again, we see this play out to the detriment of organizations who won't open up and say, look, we can make this happen here. So that cultural dynamic leads me back to where I started, and that is professionalism pretty much must be a personal decision because it's odds-on unlikely your organization's going to get behind a big professionalism push. I'm going to keep fighting that battle. I hope a few minds might be changed by this. And we're going to talk more about specifically what are the elements of professionalism. There's 6, right? There's professional ethics, professional image, professional engagement. There is the ability to reach outwards, the psychosocial skills, and then there's that altruistic selflessness that's part of it. We're going to talk about all those in the weeks to come. But for now, I'd like to wrap it up with a few takeaways. 3 of them. Takeaway number 1. Professionalism is way too important to allow us to define it by its negative. We can't assume it's present if there's a period of time when unprofessional acts are not being committed. Right? There's so much growth, so much money left on the table, so much talent, satisfaction, and engagement left on the table if we allow people just to perform to minimum standards, or even sometimes below minimum standards, but as long as nobody knows, we're okay, right? So number 1, professionalism is too important to be defined by its negative. Number 2, professionalism sure doesn't mean what it used to, but it could. Right? Back in the days of the monasteries and the trade guilds, which really, as a historian, 400 or 500 years removed from that, those lessons are all still there. Right? How do we grow someone? How do we grow ourselves from an apprentice through a novice, through a journeyman, to a craftsman, to a master craftsman? What does that look like if no one else sets the standards? Right? Again, something we're going to talk about in the weeks to come. Professionalism doesn't mean what it used to, but it could. And then finally, because organizations are reluctant to take on professionalism initiatives because it's defined by its negative. Oh, if we took on professionalism, people would think we're unprofessional. So that has to mean that professional growth is a personal decision. Number 3, professional growth is a personal decision. And while organizations love to talk about it, they're seldom providing you the resources or the knowledge you need to pursue it. And that's why we're talking about it here. Okay, well, that's a wrap on episode 16. As we conclude this segment, think about what might be possible for you to climb the professionalism ladder, from just having a job to being fully compliant, to being fully engaged, to becoming a mentor and giving back to others, and then maybe achieving that pinnacle of getting promoted to where you can really make formal differences inside an organization. And also think about what's in it for you. What is the personal driver for you to want to improve as a professional? I fight this battle every day, right? It's a good fight, but it's not one I always win. I slide down that ladder far too often, but I savor the victories and I learn from the losses. And I offer that as kind of a last word on professionalism here in podcast 16. So I look forward to seeing you again next week. Remember, we're on every Tuesday. We drop at 0800 Eastern Time every Tuesday on your favorite podcast platform. You can watch it because it's in video, but if you listen to it, whatever, please share it with others. We want to get the word out here. We think this is good stuff. It's things individuals and organizations probably don't hear in this level of depth. So I'd like you to make a few intentional decisions about how you want to live, what you're capable of being, and as always, how you can get better in all the ways that matter to you. Keep the feedback coming. We're learning. This entire podcast today was based on listener feedback because after all, just like you, I'm only human. I will see you again next Tuesday. See you soon.